Okay,
Steve, how are you now?
all right, welcome everybody to the Town of Pownal Select Board meeting, May 27th, 2021 at 7 PM. We need to approve the agenda, approve the minutes of May 13th, warrants, Pownal landfill supplement investigation report, correspondence, website, public comment, and then adjourn. Can I entertain a motion to accept the agenda, please?
I'd like to add a couple of items to the agenda.
Sure.
We need to add, it doesn't matter where it goes, but we need to add, from the road foreman, a request on, the items that we have had up for auction, or that we have on the auction block. And I can explain it more later, but we need to add that to the agenda at some place. It can probably go,
I'll put it for A.
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
4B.
yep, it can go after the landfill, that's fine.
Okay, anything else? I thought you said you had a couple, just from the road crew, right?
Yeah, just the one from road crew.
Okay.
There's two items that we have up for auction right now, and Joel's just looking for
Okay,
something. That's all. We'll bring it up, man.
then can I entertain a motion for the agenda with the change of the town department?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Ronnie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob, Jamie,
Aye.
Angie, I. Okay, 2, approval of minutes, May 13th, 2021.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second it.
Any discussion on the minutes? Ronnie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Angie, I. Warrants. Accounts payable, 5/28/21, $164,987.81. And Alpine Construction for $86,372. That was for the Main Street Bridge. People's United Bank, that's $23,563.47. That's the tandem truck payment. Dell Computer, $8,750.92. That's the Zoom business here and the Dell laptop. Cat TV, $1,200. Green Mountain Power, $2,169.61. MVP Health Plan or Healthcare, excuse me, $8,780.53. TAM, which is part of Casella now, $4,708.38. Beamers, $3,480.03. IRS, $6,849.02. Can I please entertain a motion?
Make a motion. We pay, sign warrants.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I think the only quick thing I have on that, Angie, and Tim, you can help me out, but Chuck was here yesterday working on the Zoom system and the screen.
Yep.
And I believe next week.
We're hoping he's coming in next Tuesday to do the software updates that allow everything to.
So it'll be live.
So we'll
So-
be able to be live.
So it looks like next week we should be, that's the target, is that new system should be up and running early next week.
Excellent.
Just an update on that.
So then everybody will be able to see us all.
Right, it's just, just an update on that system.
Yep.
That's all.
Wasn't part of that purchase with a grant too?
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, just-
Okay, so I have a motion and a second on the table. Any other discussion? Ronnie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob, Jamie,
Aye.
Angie, I. Okay, payroll, we're gonna have to do separately.
Yep.
Payroll 5/21 for $13,509.40. That has Ronnie in it and Mike, so they need to abstain. So can I entertain a motion, please?
Make a motion to sign the payroll warrant.
Second, any further discussion? Ronnie?
I
No, you need to abstain.
gotta abstain. Well,
Mike,
Abstain.
Bob,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Angie, I. And that was for $13,509.40. All right, the second payroll is for $9,804.46. Can I entertain a motion?
Make a motion to approve that payroll, ending 5/28.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ronnie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Angie, I. Okay,
Yep.
Yep.
That
so
was
then,
fine.
we can move on to the Pownal landfill supplement investigation report. And there's 3 people with us, is that correct?
Yes, Kurt Muller should be with us.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Kurt, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Kurt Muller with VHB. And we have got three other people with us as well tonight. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Okay,
I'm Steve Hilker of VHB. I did a lot of the field work out here at the formal Pownal landfill site.
hi, welcome.
Hi, I'm Sean Donovan. I'm with the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation Sites Management Section, and I'm the site manager for this
Good
project.
evening.
My name is Lynette Cladone. I also work for the Department of Environmental Conservation in the Clean Water State Revolving Fund.
Hi, welcome. Okay, who would like to go first?
I'll kick it off if that's okay. So I wanted to just give an update to the select board this evening and discuss next steps. As you're well aware, there was a preliminary investigation that was done last year, which identified essentially the PFAS or PFOA being the contaminant of concern in groundwater. And so the supplemental investigation targeted, what the attempt was to define the extent of that groundwater impact for PFAS. And so in doing so, we installed several wells in the forested wetland that is up to the northwest of this area, as well as sampled 13 bedrock wells from nearby properties to better understand if the bedrock is impacted, anybody's groundwater, if anybody's drinking water is impacted. So the results of the supplemental investigation did 2 things. The first one, we identified that the impacts in the shallow groundwater indeed extended into the forest and wetland and actually went up in concentration. So it suggests that in the shallow groundwater, those PFAS impacts are actually migrating off the property, unfortunately. The other thing we identified is that in the drinking water wells, and I can share a screen. I'm not sure if you're able to see a screen if I share it or not.
Oh, we can see you.
Would you like me to share a screen?
If you'd like.
May I have access? Okay,
Yeah, you should be able to share it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So here are the drinking water wells that we sampled, and fortunately the standard is 20, and none of the results exceeded the standard. So all the way up here in the Strohmeyer well, which is quite a distance from the site, we did still have 7.31, and this is a snapshot in time, 1 sample, 1 time. So in doing so, we were comforted by the fact that we did not have these PFAS in the groundwater at concentrations exceeding the standard. But the fact that there were detections is a little disheartening. So I guess in terms of next steps, the DEC, and Sean can explain this more, the DEC requires that we determine the extent of impact. And so from a shallow groundwater perspective, they would be requesting, and we would recommend, additional groundwater wells down gradient. I'm going to switch figures here for a second. So we see the groundwater flow direction to the northwest. And the results suggest that we have elevated concentrations all the way at the extent here. So what we would propose would be additional wells, probably not in here because the terrain is challenging, but a ring further out to truly get the extent of impact. And then from there, we would also recommend sampling those drinking water wells again. Given the fact that this was a snapshot in time once, it's important that they be monitored to make sure that the groundwater or the drinking water that they're using is impacted. And finally, the Jewett Brook, which is located right here, that serves as a location that I guess animals drink at, cows and dogs, etc. And there's a possibility, given the fact that we've got shallow groundwater impacts here, that this brook could also be impacted. So we recommend taking a sample of that brook. So essentially, that's the next round. We were hoping that we would be able to get to the phase of designing some sort of cleanup, but because the extent hasn't been identified, unfortunately, there's another round of investigation that will be required. So that's it in a nutshell. And I'm certainly open to ask questions. And if Sean or Steve or Lynette would like to add anything to that, feel free to do so.
So you said the one in the upper left that we're looking at on the share screen, and sorry, my eyes aren't all that great, but that one was at 7 something,
7.31, yes.
7.3. Was that the high? Is that parts per million?
That's actually parts per trillion. The highest one was 11.3.
And you said, oh, that was going to be my next question. So the highest one was 11.3, but 20 is the standard, right? Under 20 is acceptable.
20 is the standard, correct? Yes. But given the fact that we are finding detections, oftentimes you've got with seasonal variation, the groundwater fluctuates, and you could have varying concentrations, you could have varying inputs to those fractures in the bedrock. And given the fact that this is not just a well in a field, this is a well that somebody's drinking from. Based on the conversations that Sean and I have had, the recommendation would be to sample those wells again, to just make sure that these people are not drinking water that exceeds the standard.
So, but the recommendation was both, if I understood it correctly, and maybe I didn't, was both to do more sampling, because this is a snapshot in time, in order to get a sort of a time horizon and some confidence that those are remaining constant, rising, lowering, or whatever they're doing. But you also were recommending additional wells.
Correct. So the drinking water wells are what are called bedrock wells. They're deep. And so there's another aquifer above that deep bedrock well. We're calling it the shallow aquifer. And that's where these wells are that we collected samples from within a landfill property. And so, again, we have exceedances, significant exceedances above the 20 standard, 506 here, 197. So the fact of the matter is we've got exceedances that are likely to go past the property line, and the I rule, or the regulations that the state follows, requires that the extent of those impacts be identified. In order to do that, additional wells would need to be installed.
Have we dyed this area, or have you dyed this area so we know the actual direction of the water flow?
Could you repeat the question, please? I couldn't hear you.
Have you dyed any of the wells so we actually verify where the groundwater seepage is heading?
So we have not
Because
dyed the wells, and we've only collected samples from the bedrock wells from the families or the homes that have them. So these are all shallow wells, and I guess your question is, could we dye the shallow aquifer to see if it's connected to the deep aquifer?
I would think so, because from the education that I've been following from all this PFOA stuff from the beginning, there was a lot of contamination, basically from stack level, that dropped down. So I mean, that's why a lot different areas around where the plants were, they felt most of it, a lot of areas were contaminated due from at the time, no filters in the stacks.
And so that you're through atmospheric deposition, the particulates would get onto the surface, and then so I don't, the conceptual site model that we have here suggests that industries such as General Cable had put industrial waste in this west landfill, and as a result, it's coming from the landfill. This is not a situation from atmospheric deposition based on our conceptual site model.
Right, that area there, I would concur with you because of the high levels of the test wells. But when you go to the outskirts and you're seeing the 7.31 or what, and that kind of stuff, that's where I'm speculative as far as the atmospheric type. Could have landed in a mountaintop water source, which runs down into the aquifer, the deeper aquifer. Because that's what they've proven in a couple of other areas in town and in Bennington.
We compared these wells to other sites, the other PFAS sites, because we wanted to make sure that it wasn't coming, this wasn't the broader impacts are not a result of some other site, because you do have there are several, as you're well aware, several other PFAS sites, and it appears that they're connected to the landfill site and not other sites.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Kurt?
Yeah, I do. Kurt, this is Tom Shuey.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Hey, now, where all do you want to put these other wells? I mean, are they going to be on Dr. Salem's property?
We're going to have to work with you all to see what we can get access to. I mean, the last thing I want to do is cut down trees in here or in here. So we basically need to determine the extent. So we haven't said it has to be here, 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 here. We need to get a general understanding around this perimeter, and it doesn't really matter if the well is here or if the well is here. The point being is we just need to determine the extent. So I'm hoping, Tom, we could work together to see who might be willing to allow us on their site to put a well.
Yeah, well, the thing is we're going to run into is you're going to be on the Stromeyers, and I've already talked to one of them, and they're very adamantly against it.
Okay.
That's it. And the thing of it is, it's all tied up in an estate, Kurt. And I think that basically until the estate settled, and that could be years and years, unfortunately. So I'm just not so sure how successful we're going to be trying to do this.
Yep.
With the Stromeyers, because if one person is part of the estate says no, I'm afraid that's going to be it. And one of them already told me no. So, I mean, that's where I want to put it. I mean, I want to get you guys on notice about this. I agree we could use a little bit more testing. Are we doing PFOA testing on all those 12 residential wells again?
That would be my recommendation. Yes.
Right. Well, Sean, what do you think of that? Is that what you want?
I agree with that recommendation, because I think it's important to understand, as Kurt already mentioned, that this is a snapshot in time. There are always seasonal fluctuations in groundwater, both overburden and bedrock aquifers. It is, and as Kurt also indicated, that these are very deep drilled bedrock wells with lots of complex fractures in groundwater flow and hydraulic conductivities. And so it is quite possible that these particular points in time can and will fluctuate. And we need to understand if they're fluctuating, decreasing or increasing, or, or stable. So this is what we do on all of our sites, contaminated sites that we monitor. We get data set, and we were able to better understand conceptually with a data set as opposed to one point in time.
So, now how long do you think that this is going to have to be maintained with the residential wells?
That's a good question. And I think right now, based on the conversations I've had with Kurt, I think we kind of put it at, test them once more, probably a couple more times. And then once we can get a handle on a trend in the data, we'll be better informed to make a decision. And so I was extremely pleased when the data came back as all, and from the drinking water wells, all below the 20 ppb.
I was thrilled too, to tell you the truth. I really was.
Yeah.
But,
it was a big deal because this, I've been on this site a few times now. I've seen the debris kind of poking out of the toe slope on the landfill, and we know the waste streams that were accepted there are directly tied to PFAS issues in other areas in Pownal and throughout the state. So, yeah, I think, yes, more data is needed. The delineation piece is needed as well. And, you know, once we have that information, we'll be better equipped to move into an evaluation of what a corrective action plan would be, what it would look like.
Yeah, no, but these are rather expensive tests, are they not?
The analytical is expensive, yes. The wells are even more expensive, but I guess to your point earlier, Tom, you know, if the Strohmeyers just flat out say, we're not letting you do this on the site, and we have a documented, you know, documentation that says that, there's nothing that we can, you know, we can't do anything about that. You know, we'll do the best we can with where we have access. But the reality though too is, although we want to find the extent and we'll do the best to do that, the sensitive receptor here is humans drinking this water. And
Absolutely.
so in terms of priority, like resampling the drinking water wells is a higher priority than determining the extent. We're going to try to determine the extent, but the sampling of the drinking water, you know, that's something that we need to continue to evaluate. And I guess if we were to have a situation where it exceeded the standard, you know, we would want to confirm that data exceeded the standard. And at that point, then you start evaluating like a point treatment system for resin filter or something to that effect at the wells that are impacted. But the reality is it doesn't appear that we've got really elevated concentration in the bedrock, which is a very good thing. And we just want to make sure that that's, you know, ground truth, that data, and continue to monitor it.
Yeah, well, what I'm looking at is a cost value on this. I understand, you know, where you're coming from, but I mean, these are awfully expensive tests. If we're going to have this ongoing, I mean, you know, more than 2 times now. I mean, what is $600, $700 a pop? There's 12 of them.
For each of them.
Yeah. You know, and there's 12 of them. So, you know, we're talking, you know, $8,000, maybe $9,000 each time we do a test on these. And, you know, that's going to get rather expensive for the town. I know that. I know what we need to do, but I don't know if we need to keep this up in perpetuity, basically, you know, on these things. You know, it's up to you guys, of course. You know, you and Sean, you know, is going to be the determining factors on it. But this is just what I'm a little concerned with is we're getting our costs. We're way over what we started out to be to begin with. Now we're going even further. So, you know, what are you looking at? Do you have any kind of an estimate of what this is going to cost, Kurt?
So in terms of the components that we had discussed that I had presented earlier. So if we were to resample all of the drinking water wells but that we already did, it's 11, 12 grand.
Okay.
And then in terms of getting a specialty drill rig out there to install new monitoring wells in challenging places, you know, through we had already looked at, we're in about 37K for that piece of it. And then to resample all of the monitoring or the new monitoring wells that we install, that's about 5K, just the new ones. So that doesn't include a report or the work plan or the coordination with CWSRF, but this is not inexpensive. And I think that, you know, we need to satisfy DEC, but, you know, be as cost conscious as we can, given the fact that this is really expensive for the town. And I want to, you know, perhaps Lynette should, because there is a loan that's in place, and maybe Lynette, you could provide an overview of that.
Well, that's up to the select board there. That's not my deal.
Amy has a question.
No, it's more of a statement.
Oh, go ahead, Jamie.
But, I mean, obviously, if they've only done it once, they need, usually, I believe the state always does 4 tests. That way they can do a graph setup. And, I mean, obviously, the town's responsible, got some responsibilities here. They can make sure it's not leaching from our old dump site. So it's got to be done, unfortunately, because, you know, whether the cost or not.
So if it is a standard to do it multiple times, then I guess, did we plan to do it multiple times from the beginning? That,
If I could just add a quick comment, you're right that, so I think probably what you're referring to are sites where there are data points, monitoring wells that are above regulatory standards. You know, we're talking about these drinking water wells that have not shown us contaminant levels above a threshold in which we would regulate. So that's why we're having the discussion that, you know, collectively we're trying to get everyone on the same page that it is the best decision, the most rational decision to sample those again, not because we have a contaminant issue, but because we need to ensure that those detections in the drinking water supply wells are stable to declining or not increasing.
Right.
So the wells that we have, where we have PFAS data, orders of magnitude in groundwater above our regulatory standard, those will require some type of long-term monitoring, meaning whatever the frequency of monitoring will be, but we need to continue to monitor those, you know, because we have such high levels of PFAS in overburdened groundwater at this property.
what is the, what would be the appropriate frequency of testing? I mean, is it annual for, you know, 2 years, or, I mean, you get my drift, right? It should be
Yep.
3 days in a row. It won't tell us as much as if we did it once a month or whatever the standard should be.
Yeah, I mean, we have these discussion based on the data. We have these discussion with VHB, your qualified environmental professional, to determine, you know, is it 4 times? Is it quarterly? Is it biannually? Is it annually? But the fact is that we do need to monitor those levels of PFAS in the groundwater, both on-site and hopefully off-site. I mean, looking at that map that Kurt was showing, I looked to me like the Stromeyers own both parcels north and west of the site, and that is wholly where we're trying to to look at, both north and west. So that gives me some concern, and it certainly wouldn't be the first time I've had to try to work with a property owner that is you know, not thrilled about the state and the town and their consultants sort of poking holes in the ground. So, you know, that to me is something I think, unfortunately, could drag out this project timeline, and hopefully not, but, you know, it's something that we really got to think about.
And I guess to add to that, just in terms of the time frame of monitoring, you know, the source presumably is the landfill itself. And so if the source is not being remediated directly, i.e. either there's an interceptor trench that is capturing the contaminated groundwater and treating it so there's no more source, or, you know, the landfill, the material in the landfill is removed so there's no more source, all of which are incredibly expensive. If those things aren't happening, there has to be ongoing monitoring to make sure that source that is still contributing is not contributing more. You know, so this could be 50 years of migration, and we don't know if the slug or the plug of impact is still yet to come. So that's why the monitoring, to continue to understand what's happening with the network of wells and this contaminant migrating, is important to evaluate.
But I guess what I'm getting at is if let's assume that we didn't have the obstacle of having to get a landowner permission. Of course we do, but and I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't. I'm just playing the hypothetical so I can understand what the best practice would be. What would be the frequency? So assuming that we were able to go in and test whenever we wanted to. As Tom pointed out, they are expensive tests, but what would be the ideal frequency of testing and duration? And I realize duration is going to depend on the result. If it's increasing, you want to keep doing it. If it's remaining steady, maybe there's an argument to keep doing it. If it's dropping, maybe we feel more comfortable about stopping sooner.
So ideally, it would be semi-annually at a high groundwater and a low groundwater level.
DEC is the one that's gonna let us know how long this is gonna last.
I'm having a hard time.
I say the DEC usually regulates the length of having to test and all that.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, I mean, technically, we are able to close sites. You know, we are able to provide you, it's what we call a sites management activities complete letter. But in order to achieve that milestone, we need to have an understanding of we need to have the contaminant plume delineated to ensure that it's not migrating toward sensitive receptors or impacting like drinking water wells is the prime example here for this particular scenario. So technically speaking, the state has and continues to close sites with groundwater impacts above regulatory thresholds. Obviously, there's an institutional control in place if that's the case, but that milestone again can't be achieved if we aren't able to fully understand the extent and magnitude of the contamination plume.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
If we're not allowed to put other wells in, and how many wells do we have now that affect people with drinking water? 12? Is that correct?
12 drinking water wells or 12 groundwater wells? Which ones?
12 wells that people drink from. Is that correct?
We did 13.
So could we like put some kind of filtration system in those homes and move forward from there? If we can't do other wells?
Well, that's what I was getting at, was if we continued to monitor the drinking water wells and it got to a place that it was above the standard consistently, that would be the most cost-effective way to manage that issue. There's no need to do that right now because there's nothing that exceeds the standard. But if we were to hypothetically sample again and there was a significant exceedance and then confirm that one more time with a significant exceedance, the recommendation would be to get a filtration system on that drinking water source at that point ASAP.
Right, so I was thinking that we could go ahead and do it now and then skip everything else. We could not do that.
Well, it's not cost effective.
It's not cost effective. It'd be more expensive to give people filtrations on their wells.
There's no reason to do it unless there's an exceedance.
Okay,
And but in terms of, there's still a need in terms of what the state requires is to delineate the extent of impact. And so we're kind of, there's two different pieces here where we've got the drinking water wells that need to be continued to monitor to make sure there's nobody drinking impacted water above the threshold. Then there's the component that I would say is still a priority, but less of a priority than drinking water. And that's to determine the extent of the impact. Where is this plume? Where is it migrating to?
Now, Sean, I don't know if you realize we just got the other closed landfill recertified, and they're having us test once a year those existing wells that we had for PFOAs. That's, we're going to do the 2 a year, but only once a year with the PFOA test. So now we're not going to be duplicating those with Kurt's unit, are we? With those wells?
That would be that requirement through your post-closure certification with the solid waste management program. That would be a valid data point that we would use in terms of our conceptual model.
Yeah, so then we don't have to do that twice, I assume. You guys aren't.
I don't know what your post-closure certificate looks like, but it sounds to me like what I'm hearing is that they require once a year you test for PFOA.
For the next 3 years with these other wells, and then we tested Boudreaux's drinking water well also.
Okay.
Right.
Do you test for just PFOA?
No, no, they do the whole gamut.
Okay.
We do.
Yeah. So we would absolutely, there would be no reason to duplicate that effort or that monitoring point through our assessment. I mean, we
Okay, very good.
use that as a
I just
data
as
point.
well pay twice for something we don't,
Right.
we don't have to do that because we are going to be doing that. So,
Okay.
and then we can simply get you get the information anyhow. Buzz
Kurt, do you
does.
agree with that assessment?
I do. I would say that I'd like to know when they are sampling, so we
Yeah.
can do it at a similar time. So we don't have data from September to compare to data from, June. Well,
I'll get it. I'll get in touch with Oscar. We'll find out. He did send me an email the other day saying he was coming up, but he didn't say what day. But it's that one right there, the one you just pointed to.
Yeah.
That one. And then these couple down through here, and then the one over right there. Yeah. Those you have to have tested once a year for our post-closure on the East landfill.
Yep.
One thing I want to add so that we're very clear is that, I would want to know the sampling methodologies they're using and the analytical methodologies they're using. I'm assuming they're going to be, does the solid waste, I know the solid waste program does sampling at landfills annually. Is the solid waste program doing the sampling, or is it a consultant that you've retained to do that?
It's a consultant, Stantec. We're not doing it. Stantec's doing it.
Yeah, I would ask that we coordinate before
Okay, well, I'll send off an
Data.
email to the officer tomorrow.
Okay.
And Kurt, it's okay if I give him your contact information and so forth?
Sure.
And that-
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I'll do that tomorrow morning. After I move a bunch of refrigerators.
Jamie?
Kurt, this is Harry. Has there been any plan for the remediation? Or any sort of remediation for that, low groundwater area?
Until we determine the extent, I mean, we had discussed transitioning into that evaluation of corrective action alternatives. And so, yes, we've had some discussions about it. We're not officially ready to do that because we need to determine the extent of the release. However, there are two real options to address the issue at the landfill that are probably the most cost effective. The first one would simply be to cap it so we're not having rainwater precipitation going into a sand layer that then, continues to force water out that's impacted. So that's something that we should probably plan on. The next thing would be to some sort of interceptor trench. And that trench could be capturing groundwater and treating it. That trench could be filled with a resin-like compound that would essentially act as a net, and the groundwater would flow through that trench, and it would capture the impacted groundwater, basically capture the PFAS in it to a certain extent, and then the water that passed through it would essentially be clean. So it's not causing it to degrade, it's just capturing it from migrating. So therefore you're cutting off the source, and over time the down gradient will dilute. That would require monitoring, and that would also require probably replacement of that trench at one point, but that's a approach that we could evaluate. So some sort of trench to capture, and then capping the landfill are the two primary options. I think in terms of if we end up having wells that are impacted in houses, the resin filters are probably the best approach there to address the point locations. Combination of those three things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just go ahead and add a comment. I don't know if anyone was going to ask, but as we evaluate corrective action alternatives, we don't envision doing a source removal, i.e., removing the landfill for disposal. That just we have way more cost-effective ways to mitigate this issue. I know that it comes up when we're talking about old town dump sites as a source of contamination. A lot of people do get concerned that we're going to have to spend millions of dollars hauling this source material off site for proper disposal. That's not a scenario that we're envisioning here.
Okay, thank you.
That was a good ad.
Yes. Anything else to add, anybody?
Well, I just wanted to say to Kurt, I just totaled up your little things there. That's another $88,500. Is what you're proposing on this, correct? What you showed there a while ago?
Those are rough, pretty conservative or generous numbers. That was a ballpark, but what we need to do is develop a work plan and a detailed cost estimate with that, but you're in the 75-ish, 85-ish range. And we will try to fine tune that to not resample every single one of these existing groundwater wells as best we can. But the reality of getting that sonic rig out there that we need to get to the groundwater here, that's pretty darn expensive to get that thing mobilized, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that.
So the
So-
town is
Yeah, go ahead, Lynette.
The town is currently using funding from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund for the first portion of the contract. And the town is welcome to apply for an amendment to their Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan. We have continued subsidy opportunities at a 50% subsidy up to $100,000 on a per project per year basis. In the current fiscal year, the town's only used about $10,000 of the subsidy that they could access. And the fiscal year for this year ends June 30th. And then starting July 15th, which would be the start of the next intended use plan and fiscal year, the town would be able to apply for that 50% subsidy up to $100,000. And since the value of the contract is not $200,000, you wouldn't be able to max out that subsidy.
And have you heard whether any of the Recovery Act funds will be able to apply to this since it is under the revolving fund?
So the ARPA rules that are out in draft indicate that the eligibility for use of the ARPA funds is the same as the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. So the town could choose to use the town's direct ARPA appropriation for funding that is eligible for the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which this work would be.
And that's in conjunction with the subsidies. It's not in place of, correct?
That, I'm not sure if you can mix and match ARPA with Clean Water State Revolving Fund money yet. A lot of those decisions haven't been made yet.
Thank you.
But the ARPA money that I'm talking about is the direct appropriation that Pownal is receiving directly from the Treasury and not the state ARPA money.
Okay. Thank you. Does
You're
anybody
welcome.
have
You turn into a pretty costly item,
anything to add? Yes, it
that's what
can.
we're looking at, right?
Very costly.
I would like to, I think we've got the accounting somewhere, but go back to the beginning. What did we start with?
We've spent to date about 195,000 before subsidies. We don't get to really see just yet how that subsidy falls into that lump. That's how much has been spent to date.
Kurt and I can pull those numbers together for you if you'd like to see them.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
please.
Yes,
yeah, that would be
please. That would be great.
Hard time hearing, but Lynette, you can,
We'll work together to get them a project cost summary that shows how their subsidy is being applied.
fantastic. Happy to do that.
Thank you very much. Do we have to do anything tonight to approve, or this was just a, this was just an update, right?
It's an update. So the next steps are going to be to develop a work plan with the cost estimate. That cost estimate would then need to be incorporated into an amendment to the existing loan agreement, if it's approved. And then with that loan agreement's approved, then it could technically be implemented if the town agrees to do so.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Bonnie,
No, I'm all set.
Mike,
I'm
You're good?
totally confused.
I want to make sure I ask everybody. I don't want to miss anybody. You good?
Do you ever have to ask me if I have a question?
No, that's
All
true.
right. then. Move on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your time. Any questions,
you.
please feel free to email me.
All right, thank you so
Thank you.
much. You all have a
All
good.
right.
Have a nice
Bye.
holiday weekend.
Thanks, Kurt.
Well, even though it's early.
Ron, nice seeing you again.
Thank you.
There, take care of that.
Okay, so moving on to correspondence.
No, we gotta do
No,
the,
yeah,
Oh, the town. Oh my gosh, 4B, I'm sorry. The town department is asking us if we can go ahead,
the road department.
the road department, to move forward with selling 2 pieces of equipment.
No, what Joel, I talked to Joel today about it. So what he's looking for is, our approval for him to make a decision once the auction has ended on the 2 pieces of equipment that he has listed on the auction. Which I think the auction, if I'm not mistaken, ends in 5 days. So he just wants to be able to make that decision, at the end of the, at the end of the auction, whether yay or nay. He-
to award it or not.
That's right, whether, my recommendation is to let Joel, make that decision at the end of the auction. I mean, he knows what they're worth. He's the one that deals with them every day. I have no clue. as
Could you
far as I'm
remind me
concerned.
the 2 pieces? Do you,
It's yeah, it's a Chevrolet,
Pickup.
I think it's a 1-ton dump, maybe.
07 GMC and a 98 International.
okay,
One of them is probably a single axle dump truck size, and the GMC is like a 1-ton dump truck size vehicle.
okay.
So
I have no problem with that.
I make a motion that we allow Joel to make the decision at the end of this auction. Either yes or no, whether to let him go or keep him.
I agree with that. Any further discussion? Bonnie,
Okay,
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Angie, I. Okay, now moving on to correspondence. Rebecca,
Yep.
you want to start first?
Yeah, I'll come over that seat.
Hot seat.
The hot seat.
I can move it there.
All right, well,
That's the electric chair.
Literally.
it's okay. I'm good, Bob. Okay, so the correspondence that I have to talk about, a couple things. One is we received a letter from a group. I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but I did forward it to everyone. It is an organization that plants pollinators in places where perhaps we're mowing that we don't want to, that we could take it out of our mowing schedule. They will provide the materials for us to plant pollinators. They'll also do it at solar fields, which is a really great thing. So they basically give you all the resources to plant a wild flower field. They don't like to do anything larger than an acre. I said I would present it to you guys. It's something that they provide you the materials to do. We would have to find people to help actually do it. So my suggestion is, if you're interested in doing it, I actually think it's a really great idea, and it is important to have to plant pollinators. My suggestion is that we would put it out and see if there's a group of volunteers in town that are passionate about pollinators and helping the bees and seeing if they might want to do a project.
In that email, Rebecca, didn't it say that in some circumstances they would possibly be able to provide some manpower and assistance as well?
So yes, that's what it said in the email, but I actually spoke to the head of the
Oh,
whole
okay,
thing
okay,
today on the
okay.
phone. I wanted to
Yep.
talk to him before tonight's meeting, just more in specificity. And he said, because we're so far away, that what they would do is, the process is this, that if you guys can talk about spots where maybe we'd want to do it. I was actually thinking a strip on Center Street Park along Route 7, where it's nothing else is going to happen there. And it'll be really pretty to have that wall of flowers along there. What they do is you till it, then you put a cover crop of crimson clover on it, and then it all dies, and you plant the wildflower seed right into the dead clover the next season. So they put the nitrogen back in the soil, and they prefer to do places that you're mowing. or weed whacking. There, we also, you were talking about the solar field at the landfill, there, that's another opportunity. You know, they're not talking about taking any land for it, it's places that you normally, we're not walking on it anyway. So if you, the board thinks it's a good idea and you'd want me to pursue it a little bit further, I'm happy to do some community outreach, see if there might be a group of people here that are really interested, invested in that kind of thing. I might want to give the labor to doing that as an event. So if you, that's one correspondence.
I'm all for it.
I am
I
too.
think it's an awesome idea.
I love the idea of right here.
It doesn't matter where it is.
Right.
To me, you need bees and
Yeah.
I think it's an awesome thing, so.
Okay, I don't think you need to vote on. I'll just keep going. Okay. So you already did the Joyce thing. We received Joyce Held has resigned from the Parks and Rec Committee. So you're going to need to accept her resignation with regret. We do have 7 members on the Parks and Rec Committee. We're fully functioning. This weekend, they are doing a build of the skateboard ramps, which is really exciting. I'm gonna come and take lots of pictures. We'll do a little press release on that. But we will have, because of that resignation, we have, I think, 2 spots open on Parks and Rec. Yeah, because we have 7 presently, so when I think it's a 9, you know, but again, I've always said, if someone wants to come and hang out with Parks and Rec, they can just come and hang out with Parks and Rec. You know, there's nothing, it's not quasi judicial. We're not making official decisions. We bring everything to you. It's just ideas and helping to get volunteers together, so.
Okay. So I guess we accept Joyce's resignation with regret. Thank you, Joyce, for everything that you've done for the town.
And then what I would like to do is, for the next meeting, I'd like to put on the agenda, but we can start, I just want to talk about it publicly briefly, if you don't mind. We are building out the skateboard and scooter ramps. I know that this year you wanted to have that bring the town picnic back. So we met with the librarian, the chair, Jennifer Boucher, the chair of Parks and Rec, and myself. We met with the librarian. The librarian has gotten a grant for $3,000 and she wants to use that funding at Center Street Park. So we are, we found someone in the community to donate the labor on picnic tables for the cost of materials. We're going to get some shades for all of these are temporary installations that can be moved. They're not permanent. And also potentially putting a little library and pantry shelf down there. So, but I want to talk about that more officially at the next meeting, because I'd like to, we were talking about the idea of having, as town picnic, having like a, you know, an event with a press release where people come down there and they see the new things we have down there. We're gonna have all kinds of like cornhole and bocce balls and all kinds of stuff down there for kids to play with. So.
Right, and if we coordinate that, we should have the town hall project should be started definitely by the time we have a town picnic.
Right, so they're gonna be
And-
a shovel.
And well, you could just an idea, I guess, ad libbing here. You could have some presentations
Yeah.
available on the laminated
Perfect.
board that we talked about. You know, we could,
Mhm.
you know, expand that, so.
Perfect. Give little tours of the site if people are interested. Absolutely, I think it's a great opportunity. And I'm excited to see what they're building this weekend. So I'm sending my 15-year-old son to help since he'll be using them. So we'll have lots of pictures for everyone. I think that was it for me for correspondence.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I have one from the Elks in Bennington. They would like to invite you and your families to attend our annual Flag Day ceremony. They know that it's been a challenge because of the pandemic and the restrictions. We would like to take this day, Flag Day 2021, to honor and recognize our veterans that have come home to us and sacrificed so much for our country. We will honor our country's flag, celebrate the anniversary of its birth, and show respect and honor to the country we hold dear. The ceremony will be held on Sunday, June 13th at the Bennington Elk Lodge on Washington Ave, and it will begin at 1 p.m. The public is also encouraged to attend. We hope everybody will join us for the picnic lunch following the ceremony. So that is June 13th at 1 p.m. at the Elks Lodge.
So could we, Megan, could we make sure that gets put on, our website? You know, the various places that we post stuff. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And then we also received a letter from a Mindy Jo Harrington from the Burdick Trailer Park. I just want everybody to be aware, because nobody really knows about this, is I was contacted by, let me find her name here, Laura Mistretta, I believe that's how you say her name, Mistretta. She is from the CCO Mobile Home State Program, and she is to help people that are in mobile home parks. Not the park owner, but the people in the parks. And she had received numerous complaints. So she reached out to me, and I went down there as acting health officer, which we have an opening for, and it's open until June 1st. Is that correct? So if anybody's interested, they should send a letter to the town before June 1st. Okay, so I went down to the park and I spoke to numerous people, and I also went down with David from Orkin, because there was complaints of rats and garbage, and I just wanted to see for myself. And yes, there's garbage, and I did not see any rats, but there is an abandoned trailer that has a lot of garbage, and some of the grasses aren't mowed. There's wood, there's piles of like wood, like old wood and lumber and debris. And he did get back to me, but not with a cost yet. He did tell me that he would put, I guess they're traps. I don't know what the heck they are, but he hasn't gotten back to me. But there'd be like 4 at the trailer that has all the garbage. There would be 2 at each trailer in the park, and then 2 at another spot in the park. I can't remember exactly, but he's going to get back to me with a quote for that. I also asked 2 contractors to go down and look at the garbage and the trailer that's emptied, to give us a estimate of what it would cost to remove the trailer and the garbage. I haven't heard back from them yet. I also talked to Tom Shuey about having a dumpster going in there for a one-time use, so they could get some of the garbage out of there. And he quoted me $566 for the container and $180 for the hauling of it. So I'm waiting for everybody to get back to me. As health officer, I don't see it as a health problem. I talked to 4 different residents down there. They've had no rats in their trailers. It's all been outside, mainly in that one trailer that's full of garbage. One lady had a couple on her lawn. Another person said that she had cats and dogs and she didn't see any. And another gentleman said that he's seen them out in the park, but not in his house. So at this point, I'm just waiting for everybody to get back to me. And I do believe that Ellen hasn't gotten back to me, but I know that there's been 30-day notice for tax sale. So there's money owed for taxes and there's money owed for sewer. So that could potentially happen. There's not a person right now that owns the trailer. That person had passed, or the park, excuse me, he has passed away. And there's no executor. There is a person that has a lawyer that is trying to become the executor. So I went down there as health officer just to look and to see if we could help these people. That's where I'm at right now. I haven't received any quotes back from anybody. I would suggest that you all take a ride down there and look for yourself before we make a decision. I don't know what anybody else's thought is on this, and maybe we should ask all the tenants of the park to meet with us to see what they would like to see done. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
I think that if we're talking about doing a cleanup, I think we need to take and meet as a Board of Health and see what the rules and regulations are. because I don't think the townspeople as a whole should concur the cost of the cleanup.
No.
It should go on to the park owner.
That's correct. So we would have
Um,
to put a lien on the property.
But, and I think we have to convene as the Board of Health, and there's a process for us to go through before we can actually do that. So once we get the estimates, then we can take and move forward
Correct.
in that direction.
Yes, but I don't see like a threat, like there's no rats in anybody's
No.
trailer. Like no dog's been bitten, nobody's been bitten or anything like that. Mainly, the way I understand it, it's just around the one trailer that's been abandoned with all the garbage. So I think if they could get that cleaned up, I think that would help tremendously with the problem. Does anybody else have anything to add?
You're speaking with somebody from the state, correct?
She is,
That's what the letter said that I read. You're speaking with somebody from the state. I can't, the thing I don't understand is, are they paying sewer bills, they paying tax bills? They paying
No.
anything? They ain't paying nothing.
the tax, way I understand it is 1 year behind. I have it right here, I'm sorry. 1 year behind for taxes, which is over $10,000. And sewer, 2 years behind, and that's also over $10,000. So there's a lot going on with this situation. There's taxes and sewer owed that could potentially go for tax sale with probably this summer at some point. The person that owned the park is deceased. There's no executor of the park, and there is a resident that lives in the park, which is trying to become the executor.
Thank you for the information.
So is there anybody else have anything to add from the board? I
We
will
have
bring
to
this,
follow it.
right,
We have to follow it. All I'm saying is the town, it ain't the town's responsibility to take care of this. We should be laying a lien somewhere against the property or whatever it is.
if we do something, correct,
We're doing. it.
correct,
That's right.
yes,
That's the only I can see.
right,
Because we just had a Zoom meeting there a couple nights ago, and that was, people hollering about not paying and this and that, pay your taxes.
right,
That's what you're here for. Pay your taxes.
right.
But anyway, that's,
So as I get information, I will bring it back to the next board meeting, and I will let everybody know, because by then, the Orkin man is supposed to get back to me by Tuesday or Wednesday. I did ask the 2 contractors if they had been down there, and they've been too busy. They haven't gotten down there yet. So they're supposed to get back to me. So hopefully soon, and I will bring it back to the board. And I'm also talking to Laura from the state, and I'm also speaking to, lost his name, Arthur Hamlin. He is mobile home laws. He is more for the park owner, not the residents of the park. He did suggest that maybe moving forward that him and Laura and our attorney talk to the state's attorney. But I want to make sure we have everything in place and see what happens, because I personally, yes, it's awful to look at that garbage, and yes, there's rats, but I don't see it as a hazard at this point. I don't think anybody's gonna get hurt by it, or they're not in their homes, they're outside. Does anybody have anything to add or ask me any kind of questions? Megan, is there anybody out there that would like to ask a question about the park?
I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Public comment for
On the
the,
park.
on the park? Nobody's raising their hand?
No.
Okay, thank you. So then number 6 is website. Is that you, Tim?
Yep.
Okay, let me push this over to you, sir.
Oh, thank you. So I sent an email out last week about sort of a preliminary website that we've designed in-house with the hope of moving all of that in-house so we can utilize Megan and myself better, save the town some money, having that outsourced out. And so I just wanted to throw it out there to see if anyone has any comment. And then if we can, if everyone's for bringing it in-house, take action to do that, because we do have to give 30 days notice to the current vendor. So
And
which,
that would save us about $3,000 a year, is
Yes.
that correct?
correct.
So that would be potentially
So it gives us more flexibility.
flexibility.
Gives us more flexibility, saves money, and lets us be a little more nimble when it comes to getting things up on the website and making changes, having a lot more influence and creativity on the pieces that we want to put up there.
We have more control.
Yes, yes.
And with Megan working in the evenings now, sometimes, there's a time differential now where she'll be here, she'll be able to post those agendas after 4:30 PM, which till now she's been unable to, we can't do.
Right.
Yeah.
Any further information as far as the .gov?
I did. So within the last year, the federal government's initiated a program that lets municipalities switch over to a .gov ending instead of .com. It would be townofpownal.gov. What that gives us is essentially everything routes through basically the Department of Homeland Security, and you get a lot more security from cyber attacks and all of that infrastructure there.
That was good. That was a question I was gonna have. That's an exact question I was gonna have is.
Yeah.
Would we be, but you answered it. Would we have the same or better, security on our website?
So the way it works, because it's a two-bit thing, our website would have .gov, but the other piece that impacts is our email system, because we all right now have townofpownal.org. We would have to migrate to townofpownal.gov. So the cost to move to a .gov thing is what they're waiving. There's a $400 a month or $400 a year fee for using the .gov. I spoke to Chuck, and there would be a lot of sort of figuring out how to move all of our emails and time into the .gov thing. So what I would recommend now is if we choose to do the website, we just move forward with getting the current website on townofpownal.org, and then give us a little more time to look deeper into what it means to transfer over to .gov.
Also,
So it wouldn't go away. Yes, yes,
between what we're paying now for our emails and stuff versus going to.
correct, correct.
How close are we to ready to flipping? I know it has to be at least 30 days, but is that enough time for us to be ready to launch?
Yeah, we're pretty much, what you saw last week was probably 90% there. And Megan and I have been using the last week to get it closer. And so where we're going to be at in June is bringing the two in sync. So at July 1st, everything that's current for the town is on the website.
I just want to add
So
to that, I don't believe there's anything, we don't have anything privileged that can be accessed through the website. There's nothing that's stored on the website that could be, like, hacker can get into it. There's nothing, they're not going to get into anything, is what I'm saying. It's not connected to our archives. It's not connected to our personnel files, that kind of thing. So I don't know if that is helpful.
Well, the only
Security
thing,
question.
The security piece has a lot more to do with the email side of the equation. Only because if someone's going to send you something, it's going to be to townofpownal.gov, where that infrastructure then would take effect and help.
Well, I know there was a level of security with our present youth service provider, and so people can't get on there and they can add to it and whatnot, because we had to there was a
well, then we had a
Yeah,
problem with
Right
that.
privilege.
right.
We did have a problem.
We had to take and pay an increased fee for her to take and change the encode on it.
Right,
You
and
mean
that
to
was to
the-
prevent anybody from being able to, it was to make sure nobody had write access, right?
Correct.
Correct.
That anybody going there was only read access
Right.
or limited to the things that we allow them to do, like fill a form or whatever.
Right.
So.
Well, that was my question. I just want to make sure we had that same level of where it was breached before, the same level or better.
And I can double check that. for
Okay,
sure. Yeah,
That's the only.
Yeah, because we do with the new website, it does have HTTPS, which is the encrypted, which is a higher level.
Yep.
But I'm not familiar with what you're speaking to, so I can go and do more research on that.
Should be on file. She came and talked to us about it. can't remember all particulars.
Yeah, and so
Coming out.
some of that, it's gonna be on video and, I don't remember when it was though. But it's just,
Last
Well, it's
fall,
when-
last summer.
It's been in, since I was on the board,
Yeah.
so
yeah, so it wasn't that long.
I'd say.
It's been within the year,
a little over, whatever.
right?
I make a motion to go to an in-house website managed by, our town employees.
I
I'll
second
second.
that.
You can have.
Okay. I think it's a great idea, and what I've seen so far, it's much easier to maneuver through, and it looks wonderful. You guys are doing a great job.
It really is, I gotta say, I was on it now, and I'll have some inputs, I'm sure, because I can't keep my mouth shut. But it really is, it really was pretty impressive. It was
Yeah.
very intuitive, very easy to navigate. and,
Absolutely.
and Very, very professional.
Yes, I agree. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Bonnie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Angie, I. So you may move forward with that, Tim. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
Megan,
Do-
thank you very much, Megan.
Do we need, before we go away from that, do we need an effective date? Do you want that on, in a motion?
Well, no, he has to,
Yeah.
don't we have to figure out,
I'll
thought it
check
was-
into what you just brought up. And
Okay.
then if we move forward, it's 30 days from whenever we give notice to the current vendor.
Right, so,
or do we need to give him the authority to decide when to give that 30-day?
I would give him
Based
the
on the
authority.
comfort level.
that's where I was going with that.
Okay.
That's
See
the
the
only place I was
numbers.
going with it. Let's,
Go ahead,
I
Mike.
make a motion that we give, Tim the authority to, choose his 30-day notice date, for the website.
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion?
Upset.
Bob seconded it. Ronnie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Angie, I. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, now public comment. Is there anybody out there? Please raise your hand.
Jenny's got her hand up.
Jenny?
Hi all, how are you? I just have a couple of, thank you for like your explanation of what everyone's doing in the town office. Glad to see everything's going well there. And I have three suggestions. One is about the town of office staff to consider salary versus hourly. That gets rid of overtime. And if someone has to work extra, sometimes they can take comp time in a slow week. And the reason I say this is because the office staff is so qualified now that I feel like you get penalized for working quickly and efficiently, and you get rewarded for working slowly and needing overtime. So that's just, I'm just throwing it out there for you guys to consider. Another thing I would like to ask is perhaps putting the select board packets on the website, like several other towns do. And then we all have access to those materials, and then there's less time for you to explain what you're talking about, reading things out loud, warrants, etc. These were things that were just floating in my head during the campaigning period. But and then the final thing is to, I ask if you would consider putting public comment back to being at the beginning of the meeting. Most other towns, or every other town that I looked up does public comment first. We used to do public comment first. I'm not exactly sure why it got moved to being at the end. And then I'd ask you to keep it to public comment rather than public discussion, public Q&A, public debate, etc. Just asking the board to listen to what we have to say. And then if it's something that you want to put on a future agenda, you do. Like I watched Bennington's meeting the other night, and they do a whole 6 practices for public comment, and I thought they were great. So I'm just going to throw this out there to you as well. Their first one is a time to allow residents to share an announcement or info that benefits the community at large. The second is should not be related to an agenda item, but they welcome people to speak up during the discussion, as you guys do, of that agenda item, keeping it to 3 minutes or less as you do, for full name in town, which is irrelevant in Pownal, but full name certainly. Oh, Jenny Dewar speaking. And 5, sharing comments, not asking questions, not a discussion. And 6, if it requires more discussion, the board will consider taking it up as an agenda item. So I just thought that sounded really good. So those were just a few things I wanted to throw out as suggestions for you guys to consider. Hope you're all well.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Anybody else, please raise your hand. Megan, is there anybody else raising their hand?
There's no one else.
In that case, can I have a motion for adjournment? Nope.
Thing, we can adjourn this and then go into executive session.
We don't need to go
We
into
don't need to
executive
go into
session.
executive session for this.
Nope.
All right. I got a motion to adjourn. then.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? Bonnie,
All right.
Mike,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Angie, I. Thank you, everybody. Please have a good night.